Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. It's a dark and stormy afternoon, almost night, here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I'm doing some shows. And it's Saturday afternoon. This podcast comes out on Tuesday. Jackie Flynn is my guest. I haven't talked to him yet. That's going to happen on Monday. Jackie's an old friend, and I look forward to doing a podcast with him. Hung out with him recently. Fucking riot. So yeah, Raleigh, it's raining hard, and I fucking love it. I love the humidity. I love the seasons. I love the weather. It feels good. Down at Good Nights, a classic old club. It's been around for probably 25, 30 years, I think. In this rundown old building in the basement. The green room looks like the last bedroom you would choose if you lived in a frat house. With the couch, with the plastic that's peeling off, with a blanket on top of it, and the comedians have all signed the wall. And I mean, there's some people that signed this wall. Fucking Robert Schimmel signed this wall. That's how long ago this was. And the room is great. The showroom works. It's funny thing about comedy clubs. Sometimes the chains come in and they design a club, and I don't know what they're thinking. And they build a giant balconied room that has 500 or 600 seats, and the sound is bad. And they put in $1 million lighting system, and it just doesn't work. And the rooms that are great are these indie rooms like Atlanta Punchline, Punchline San Francisco, Denver Comedy Works, rooms that are just low ceiling, tight, usually in a basement, and I don't know. This one just works. It works. The crowds are great. I had and it's the South, but they can take it. You can shit on the South. 2 guys with mullets last night. I had to get off stage, walked over, ran my fingers through this guy's hair, his mullet. And I told him his hair. He said, "How does my hair feel?" I said, "Uneducated." I walked through the crowd. A woman started heckling me. I fucking annihilated her. She has PTSD right now. I'm telling you, it was brutal what I did to her. But I could tell she was going to talk through my whole set. She had already talked through the feature act set. Wasn't going to happen. Not on my watch. Not on my stage. And then she scowled at me throughout the entire performance. She just made a face, and she was sitting right next to the stage so the whole crowd could see her. Made a face, and I just looked right back at her, and I fucking laughed. And then I got a standing ovation. Late show Friday. Toughest show of the weekend. It was awesome. You should have been there. If you were there, thanks for coming out. Some nice crowds this weekend. My friend was supposed to be here. I've talked to you guys a little bit about my buddy Jeff, who is a lawyer from Boston who was very successful, owned 30 offices around New England, and drank it all away. Lost his wife, the whole story, lost his kids, homeless, living in his car at times, living in welfare motels. I've seen the guy go in and out of rehab a dozen times. You know, first detox, then rehab, and then 6 months later out in a motel room with a gallon of vodka every day, just out of control. And he's in North Carolina, and he's not far from here, and he was going to come to my shows. He was sober. He'd been sober for like 7 or 8 months. He was the best he's been in many years, and it was going to be nice to see him again and have him celebrate his sobriety a little bit. And then about a month ago, I get a call, and I could tell immediately. I can tell in 15 seconds that he's been drinking again before he even tells me. He just sounds out of control and just nihilistic and just silly, but in a bad way silly. He makes me laugh. Don't get me wrong. He is truly like one of the funniest guys I've ever known in my life. I put him up there with like Kevin Meaney and Andy Kindler, people that truly can make me laugh nonstop. And it's a shame. We used to do these bits in college. I've talked about him before. I don't want to go through it all again, but my thoughts are going out to him. Sometimes he listens to the podcast. Jeff, if you're listening, hang in there, brother. You're going to get through it. You've done it before. One of these times it's going to stick, and it's all going to come back. You're going to get not all of it. You're going to make an adjustment, and your life will return on better grounds. Whatever. Jesus. Let's do a little mail. Greg Wilkin. He said, I heard what Kevin, who's Kevin, saying about being in the moment and not taking pictures with his phone or video. Who's Kevin? Oh, Kevin Nealon, maybe? Yeah, I guess it was Kevin Nealon. I used to believe that. My friend has 6 hard drives of pictures and videos of his kids. I always said that what he was doing was wrong. He should be in the moment. My 18-year-old found a video from when he was 6 in the school play. My 2-year-old is on it, yelling hi to his brother on stage. To hear the sound of my son's voice at 2 years old just made me start crying. You think you will remember, but you don't. Now I wish I had those 6 hard drives. Well, I got a bunch. We didn't overdo it, but I had a nice HD camera, and I used to shoot all the school plays and the concerts and random stuff around the house, all the holidays and birthday parties, the usuals. And I'll tell you what, man, I pulled those things off the shelf last year, about a year ago, and I was going to start editing them, and my daughter saw me, and I had it up on the TV screen. I hooked it up with cables, and she sat down, glued to it. My son came in. My wife came in. I had about a dozen of these tapes, and we went through one a night for like 2 weeks. And it was, I don't think there's anything they've ever watched on television that compared to them watching themselves as little kids. They loved it. Here's the caveat. Well, first of all, it was funny because like in preschool, there was this teacher, and she was really hot Latino woman. I won't say her name, even though I know it. And she was hot, and she used to wear low-cut blouses, and she was up there with the kids singing, and the camera went from JoJo over to her, and it stayed on her for a lot of the show, to where I really felt embarrassed. My family was sitting here watching my perversions, and it became kind of a running joke. But don't overdo it. Don't shoot so much that you don't know where the good stuff is. That's obscene. A couple shots here and there. Is it spring? Is it spring where you are? I live in Venice Beach, and people think that we don't have spring. They think that it's just hot all year, and it's not. It gets cold in the winter. It gets into the 40s. It's gotten into the 30s. And now it's going to be 78 tomorrow, which should be nice. Spring is here, and I got to work on my lawn. It is a disaster. The sun doesn't hit it because it goes behind the house during the winter, and then it starts coming up higher in the summer, and they can come back. But it looks right now like my hair. Every year it looks like my hair before I started shaving. It just lonely strands, isolated, fighting to survive, little clumps. And I want to fertilize it, and I don't want toxic lawn products. So this company, my new sponsor, Sunday Works, they work with nature for your lawn. They use, how about like molasses? How about some seaweed? They use all kinds of crazy shit, but it works. They are experts. Here's the thing. I don't have to figure it out. I get dogs. I don't want toxins on my lawn. So I want my dogs to be able to pee on this lawn once it grows in and destroy it themselves. And so they basically have a website you go on to. And some of these websites are really wonky. This one is kind of fun because you put in your address and then it pulls up an aerial photo and it zones in on your lawn, and then you give them on the website like what your climate is. They know the climate of where you live, so they put that in. They know what the dirt is like in your area, if it's got sand in it, whatever. And then you put in what you're looking for in your lawn. And they are looking at your lawn. They can see if you want to know if your wife's cheating on you, they actually have that option as well on the site. So they take in the natural conditions, and then they send you. It's just a ready to use pouch that you put on your garden hose and you spray. It used to I used to spend my whole day on this. Now they say it takes about 15 minutes. It's coming in the mail right now. It comes very soon after you order it. So does lawn care analysis. Oh, that's what it says. Lawn care analysis. Maybe your grass has daddy issues. Maybe your lawn is codependent with the next door neighbor's lawn. It thinks the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and now you can cure that. All right, listen. Let Sunday take the guesswork out of growing a greener, more beautiful lawn this spring. Visit getsunday.com/Fitzdog. Get $20 off your custom lawn plan at checkout. That's $20 off your custom plan at getsunday.com/Fitzdog. Fitzdog. Do it. It's a new sponsor. Support them. Support your lawn. Support your family. Do it. Okay. Before we get to Jackie, let's do a couple quick nicknames. This one's funny. Daniel says, 20 years ago in high school, I was on the wrestling team. I developed bursitis in my right knee, an injury that causes the bursa sac just under the skin of the knee to fill up with fluid. Mine got so big, it was like walking around with fleshy boob-like bulge hanging off my knee. The name stuck. They called him Booby. And so he would have to take timeouts to adjust his knee wrap because he had basically a tit popping out of his knee. So they said, hurry up, Booby. Damn it, Booby. And the name stuck. So he has kids now, and they call him Booby in front of his kids. He goes, how do I change that? Well, what do I do? You know what you do? You embrace it. You embrace Booby. Your kids are going to laugh their asses off if you tell them that your name was Booby and why. And I don't think that while you were alone as a teenager, when you were 16, all horned up, whacking off in your room, you were playing with your knee. You were absolutely playing with your knee. You were fondling it. You were squeezing it. I don't know if you get down and kiss it. You probably licked your knee because you're a sicko, Booby. All right, this comes in from Dean Mitchell. This, I would say, is the motherlode of nicknames. This is as good as it gets. Just listen. Back in the 70s, we started a softball team called the Euchre Brothers. Ucker. Ucker. My nickname was Muff, otherwise known as Muffucker. Our original team was Buff, played left field, Bufffucker. Youth played pitcher. Juan F played catcher, Wannafucker. Alf played short center, Alfucker. Boyles played first base, Boyles-fucker. Boyles-fucker? I don't get that one. Cox played shortstop, Coxsucker, Coxfucker. Buttsfucker, Upchucker, and Dumpfucker, and Slitsucker. Very good. Thank you, Dean. That sounds like a fun. He sent me a photo of the team, and they look like a bunch of ragtag. They look like if the Bad News Bears had hit their late 30s, early 40s. That's what this team looked like. Couple quick binges. I'm going home from Raleigh tomorrow, and I don't know what my wife's plan is as far as me. I don't think I have to quarantine because she's got her shots because she works in a doctor's office. I've got one of my shots. My daughter has both her shots. So I don't think, but if I do have to binge, I ask for suggestions. Jim Martell suggests London Irish. It's about some hard partying Irish people in London. I'll give that a shot. And then Steve, who said Puberty Blues is very good. Proof with Russell Crowe. It features Salia's exceptional breasts. All right, I'll have to at least Google that part. The Mule, I like that. That was good. Romper Stomper, Skinheads in the 80s, Russell Crowe again. And Chopper, Eric Banya's coming of age, terrifying true story of standover man Mark Chopper Reed. Okay. All right, listen, let's get to it. My boy, Jackie Flynn. I started with this dude in Boston. I'm sure we'll talk about that. I don't know how to introduce him because I don't want to step on things that we'll say in the series. But Jackie's got a ton of credits. He's a stand-up that's been doing it 35 years, moved out to L.A. and around the same time as me. He was on King of Queens for years. He was in a lot of the why am I forgetting their names? The brothers. He was in Kingpin, Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, Say It Isn't So, Shallow Hal, Providence. Why am I forgetting their fucking names? Oh my God, what a brain fart. All right, I'll say it during the show. I'll look it up and know by the time I watch the show, by the time I record with Jackie. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this, my chat with Jackie Flynn. Okay, I'm with Jackie Flynn. A lot of people could have said that back in the 80s, early 90s. A lot of confused waitresses said, I'm with Jackie Flynn.
Yes, so they thought.
Little did they know the next shift was coming in any minute.
Yeah, we had some fun, Greg.
Yeah. I think it was a time, Jackie and I started in Boston, and I'm guessing you started comedy in about 86?
I started in earnest, I started in 87. It was my first open mic in Boston was February of 87. It was just 34 years this past February, which is just...
Where was it? Stitches? Yeah, well, that's where I did my first one.
Comedy Hell.
Comedy Hell with George McDonald.
Yeah.
He'd start the show and he'd go, welcome to Comedy Hell, where you can soar as high as the lights on Broadway or crash and burn in that fiery pit known only as Comedy Hell.
Comedy Hell. What year did you start? I'm going to say 89?
89, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was in college, and I was coming around and watching you, Kevin Flynn, Anthony Clark. You guys were like the young bucks that just came out of the gate strong. You had your own show. Didn't you have your own show at Stitches one night?
I did. I had my own night. I had a night at Comedy Connection down, the original Comedy Connection. And, and then Kevin and I did some stuff. I think we tried some different weird things like Flynn Squared or something at Stitches one night or something. Yeah. And then we ended up going out to Susie. Remember Susie that used to work,
sure.
After Harry Conforti, and she sent Kevin and I out to Reno, and we did a Flynn and Flynn type St. Patty's Day thing, and that turned into like a 25-year-long thing now. We've been doing it literally since, I want to say 1990, 1992 or something like that. Maybe going on 28 years or so, whatever. I can't do the math in my head, but crazy. And we do it every St. Patty's Day.
And you'd be able to ski, right? Because they still have
ski, and as headliners, you never get to work with each other, right. So it was kind of fun. We just kind of, do like 40 minutes each, and then it was great. We'd ski and hang out. We go up there. Then that moved from Reno to Tahoe, and then we did it up in Tahoe forever, and we're still doing it. We just had to cancel because of the COVID, obviously, but yeah, other than that.
Yeah, great. Well, that was my good fortune, because then you guys did my comedy show on St. Patrick's Day this year.
Yes, sirree. That was fun. Yeah.
We did an outdoor show at a golf course with fucking planes going overhead, cars honking on Rose Avenue.
Yeah. Good time.
It was fun,
had some corned beef and cabbage. We had your unbelievable Irish soda bread, which I ate for 2 days after that, by the way. I took a chunk home with me. That was awesome.
Yeah. That's my great-great-grandmother's secret recipe. I'm not allowed to pass it on. My mother won't let me. She also won't let me talk about my childhood. So,
well, two very dubious things.
Yes.
I think someone was killed in the making of that original recipe, wasn't
That's right. And somebody was killed in my childhood. Yeah. I think that's how it was. The Banshees back in Ireland would sacrifice one redheaded girl for each loaf of soda bread.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. It's worth it.
It is worth it. You throw a little butter on there. You can almost
so
taste
good.
the cream.
I heated it up and put some butter on it.
Yeah.
Knock your eyes out.
Oh, yeah. You said you were going to give it to your wife. I guess that didn't happen.
No, she didn't get near it. And my other kid wouldn't do it because it had raisins. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
More for me.
My kids won't eat it because of the raisins also.
And even the dog couldn't have it because raisins are poisonous to dogs. So I was in like Flynn, no pun intended.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Dogs
raisins are deadly for dogs. Yeah, raisins are real bad. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow. Wait, so I want to go back. We started talking about your first time at Stitches. I want to hear how it was because, Boston back then, comedy was really blowing up at the time that you started. And crowds used to come out. And I mean, they were ready to laugh or fight. They were but they were such hot crowds. Yeah. And like, even if it was your first time, usually you kind of got a pass on your first time, right?
It's funny you just it just reminded me of an old joke, but we're such, I'm Irish and Italian, but the Irish part, the Irish is such a contentious lot, like the fighting Irish, like you said, in Boston is all Irish and Italian or whatever, but they always spoil for a fight. And I said, is it any wonder the Irish is such a contentious lot? I mean, it's called Ireland, it's not happy to it's got Ire, right?
Right.
Anyway, you just popped into my head from 100 years ago. I wrote that stupid joke. But yes, my first time, Greg, I remember, God, how do you forget it? It was just, and the crowds were such an erudite audiences in Boston. It's all colleges and doctors, and it's just a great town, for comedy, for a lot of things.
Right.
But man, I'll tell you that Stitches, the sailings in there, especially even the original, or the Comedy Connection, if you remember, or even Duck Soup and all the other clubs that had that low, even Played Against Sam's. They all had that low common denominator with the low ceiling, and the acoustics were so good. But white hot, and I did it. I did well, I was happy with what I did, but I cringe now. I see tapes of it, and matter of fact, Kevin and I are laughing because Kevin's been going through the old Comedy Riot tapes. Kevin Flynn is who I'm talking about. No relation for your viewers at home, but it was just.
I've got a tape. I have an audio tape of the first time I went on stage. I wouldn't play with my own wife. I am so embarrassed by. How bad I was. I know,
it's cringeworthy. Yeah. But, we all went there. We all did that. I sent it to my dad on audio tape, and he was like, you shitting me? He goes, really? He goes, can you swear a little more?
Yeah, right.
He was very supportive,
Yeah, I think in those days you watched what was being done in Boston, and it was like the good comics had such an edge to them, and you could not take on that sort of
that style,
contentious attitude with the audience. You can't. It's almost like a fight. Like somebody's going to win. Either you're going to win or I'm going to win.
Yeah. Well, to our detriment, I think, as a Boston comic. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Boston comics are greatest comics of all time, in my opinion. But to our detriment a little bit, and I called it the Gavin influence. Like I was always, God forbid, there was a moment of silence, like where you weren't even talking or telling the joke, or God forbid they weren't laughing for a second. I mean, there was no friggin' subtlety. You know what I mean? It was just, and I had to learn years later that that was good, but. It's nice to let them in a little bit, and show a little vulnerability, It's just, it's so, I mean, God forbid there was ever, I was like, whoa, but jokes per second. I mean, I was up there with, the best ones. I know Gavin led the pack. I mean, Gavin, jokes per second or minute, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But, that's a whole style, and everyone says, how do you do with hecklers? I'm like, fuck, how do I know? I never have them. They don't get a word in edgewise.
Right.
When are they going to jump in my act? I don't welcome hecklers. It's not conducive to hecklers, my act,
Yeah, it's like, how did you have a three-way? I don't know. I was fucking my wife really hard. I didn't really look up. Was there someone else there?
Yeah. It was
now, I learned it, I think, coming to New York when I started doing like those alternative comedy rooms where people were telling stories and experimenting, and the audience had a lot more patience. But I think in Boston, they don't think you could take much of a break. Like they
wanted the jokes. Give it to us. Give it to us,
Give it to us or we'll give it to you.
Yes, it was kill or be killed. And but I do remember I went to one of those alternative rooms years ago. I mean, years ago, but it was long after I left Boston. Remember Largo?
Yeah.
It wasn't Largo, but it was like a room like that. I think actually Paul Kozlowski had the room, the fake.
The fake gallery, yeah.
And sometimes it was, you go in there and you do your act, but sometimes it was such a vibe that if you tried to do your material, I was so self-conscious. Like, I was like, Jesus, I felt like they were looking at me like, oh man, he's doing jokes, and it was like, what the fuck, I'm a comedian. I remember feeling really like almost at a loss, like where I went, wow, I guess I got to tell some of my dad beat me up jokes, stories or something.
Did you?
No, but I'm saying, God forbid I open up at all,
Do you think you could on stage?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've gotten a lot more open in my act as, back from the beginning, you know what I mean? Right. But I'm saying I've always been more of a joke guy, though. I don't do too much, story, I mean, I do take stuff from my real life and try to make it into fun, but I don't do a lot of, you don't get to know a lot about me when you watch me on stage,
Yeah, I could see that. Like, some people are just like,
more open.
Craftsmen, you're a craftsman and you understand rhythm. And, like some of my favorite comics are just, guys that just almost have a Borscht Belt influence. Like those old guys, they just fucking hit you hard and, nothing wrong.
We were all influenced, I think, too. We were influenced by, obviously, Gab. Lenny was a big influence on me. Yeah. Lenny Clark and Kenny Rogerson, and those three primarily were really just, I mean, I remember looking at Lenny going, man, and I'd see him night after night. I'd go there just to hang, we'd watch him, and he'd never do the same show twice in a sense. Yeah, the skeleton of the show would be the same, but then he'd just, and he was just so, I mean, pound for pound, he's got to be, the greatest nightclub comic of all time for my money when he's on, you know what I mean? When you wanted to be, Lenny, as far as nightclub comic.
And the thing is about nightclub comics is they tend to be really funny off stage too. Like theater comics, they write and they perform and they project. But like guys that can make it happen, they're in the moment. They're present in that room, and they're
extrovert. They're extroverts too.
They tend to be extroverts. You look at guys like Dave Attell. Dave Attell is as funny off stage as he is on. Yeah. Because I put him up there with Lenny as like great nightclub comic.
Oh gosh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, it's arguably you can pick a handful of guys that are all interchangeable. Right. But I do remember. I just lost my thought. You said as far as being extroverted.
Well, let me ask you, like, if you, because it's funny you say that about your act, that you don't get to know somebody. I don't even know like that much about your life. Yeah. Like I know your sister. I love your sister. What's her name again?
Jeannie, and it's Jeannie and Karen. Yeah.
Jeannie's great.
Jeannie.
She was like a total comedy fan. She was at the shows all the time. Yeah. She was a wise ass. Like she was definitely an extrovert. Yeah. And so I got to know her, and I know you guys worked in a family business together. You guys, I know the Flynn family had the fried dough concession. Yeah. Was it all over New England, or was it just?
It was all, it was mostly in New England. We started, believe it or not, my grandfather was a co-owner of a carnival, back in the day. He actually was a carny.
Really?
And I grew up, selling food at the concession stands at the carnival, as a kid. And then my dad started his fried dough concession. And then he ended up getting a location in Faneuil Hall Marketplace, which was a huge deal in 1976 when that opened.
Was there some payola for him to get that?
Yeah, it was no. He just drank with the guy for a long time, and finally he goes, "All right, you're fucking in, Flynn." He just he used to go to the bar. All the politicians, all those guys drank, right there in Boston. There, it's just
the Oyster House,
all those joints. And my dad would go down there, and we started off putting we had a trailer, like a carnival fried dough trailer that. You remember where the rack was afterwards, and but that was that used to be just a one-level parking lot. Nothing there, just like, ground level. And it was just like, and they have flea markets there and stuff like, and different things. And so on Sundays when Haymarket was going, with all the produce and the vegetables, they had a big thing. And my dad, we put the fried dough stand in there and we, knock them dead, selling fried dough. And I was a kid I remember when the Queen came to town, actually, she drove right by us there and stuff.
No shit.
And, I got a picture somewhere. Me like running, checking out the Queen in a limo. And, but at any rate,
but then you guys did like the sports places too,
yes,
right?
Well, years later, so I'm just trying to give you the timeline, but then we went and, got into Faneuil Hall, which was a big coup, that was like, then my dad tried to franchise it. We were there, remember the chocolate chip yard and all those things they had there? They had, and then my dad tried to take it. We went we opened up one in Philadelphia and in Miami and in Atlantic City.
Shit. Really?
But it just was hard getting the people to send you the royalties. My dad could have been successful, but he didn't have the head for it either. He just, I think he was supposed to go to a big meeting and he had all this anxiety and he just blew it off for some big company that wanted to buy us. You're thinking the miscues that could have happened, could have been,
Right.
But anyway, he was just a kid from Medford, just trying to do the best he can, and just
came from carnival people.
Yeah, exactly. And he grew up, he grew up in Medford, Mass. And, but at any rate, so then we went into that, and then we ended up, I got us into, when it was Sullivan Stadium, actually, before it was Foxborough, and before it was Gillette Stadium, it was Sullivan Stadium, and it was actually Schaefer Stadium before that. But I got us in there, and then we were there when the Kraft owned it for a lot of years. We were selling it up there. I got it in the Boston Garden for a while, and then we ended up trying to sell it frozen to BJ's Wholesale Clubs, which is a big chain in Boston area, on the East Coast, kind of like a Costco. And we had some of it in Sam's for a while. But it's just hard. You need to be. It's the hardest thing they'll tell you is to go from a mom and pop thing to a big corporate thing, and it's just hard. It really you need a slew of money behind you, and guys with MBAs and all that, and payroll, and we just couldn't do it. I tried to do it. I could only I rise to my own level of incompetence there.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, if the comedian is the guy in charge in the family, that's a bad sign, because you had. Well, when your dad handed over the reins, who did he hand them?
Well, it was me and my mom and my sisters pretty much. But I was kind of, the only guy in the family, and it was kind of a guy business, a carnival business. They didn't want to talk to my sisters or my mom, you know what I mean? So it was hard, in that sense, and I also wanted to do comedy. I didn't want to do, I remember my dad, like when I first started doing comedy, he actually knew Dominic from Nick's, Dominic Ventry.
Yeah.
He knew Dominic, and he used to golf with Dominic. And he'd say, yeah, my kid's doing this fucking comedy thing. He wanted me to do the fried dope business. So he was, he tried to queer the deal for me. He tried to say, look, try and dissuade him, and then Dominic actually said to me, he goes, Jack, I'll be honest with you, your kids, my dad's name was Jack too. He goes, your kid's, he's actually pretty good, and he's like, really? That's when he finally started to come around, you know what I mean? Because but one thing about my dad, he would be behind me if he just thought it was like me I'm playing the drums now. I'm a drummer, like when you're a kid, now I'm going to be this, it was like, I'm going to, he thought it was just another stupid, goofy pursuit that was going to just delay me from getting into the real world again, and he said, but then once he saw I was committed to it, he was cool with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. He gave me his Duncan Hines kind of, his stamp of approval. But then, I remember my first gig, actually. I went to, remember Robin Horton, who used to book Catch a Rising Star? So he called me up. He goes, hey, you want to go up to, at the time, I told you my first open night was February. This might have been April or something like that. And he goes, you want to go up to Hampton Beach and open up? It was either for Jimmy Tingle or Jay Charbonneau. I don't know why. I can't remember who, because I think they both were up there at something. But at any rate, I think it might have been Jay. So I went up to Hampton Beach to open for him. I had to do like 15 minutes. Which is probably all I had, decent 15 minutes maybe. And they were going to pay me $40. And Arlington, Mass, where I grew up, was about an hour ride, give or take, to Hampton Beach, where it was. And so I told my dad, I'm all excited. I go, Dad, they're paying me $40, my first paid gig, to go up to Hampton Beach to open up for a comedy show. But he goes, Hampton Beach, $40. He goes, I'll give you $50 to stay the fuck home. So he wasn't very supportive, to say the least,
Well, that must have been hard for him, because if it's a family business and it's a male-run business, he was looking to you to take over. Yeah,
he was a little crestfallen,
Yeah.
But he also, whatever, he wasn't really. He also died young. He didn't realize he was going to die, I don't think, young. So then, he didn't really worry that much about it. You know what I mean? Because he figured he'd be around to do it. So.
How old was he?
55.
Oh, yeah. My dad was 52.
Yeah, your dad had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad had colon cancer.
Oh, so, Jesus.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible.
Because they catch it now.
Now, if he knew, he was afraid of doctors, and he'd be alive today if he wasn't. He waited and waited until it was so late that the tumor was, outside the lining of the intestine, and it metastasized, and he killed himself, unfortunately.
Right. So then, how long is the business still going?
We still do some of the fairs. We have it into Topsfield Fair and Marshfield Fair. Right. Springfield, Massachusetts has the Big E. They call it the Big E.
And those fairs go all summer?
They go just in the summertime, a 10 days each roughly, Right. We used to do all the whole circuit, the carnival stuff, where the local town things, but that got to be too onerous. Yeah. And it wasn't enough, it wasn't lucrative enough, and it was too much. Became where we were just, throwing shit against the tide. We weren't getting anywhere. It was just a waste of time.
So it's just the summer business. There's nothing to do in the winter.
Just the summer. And then we had the frozen thing. We had that, and we're still trying to mess around with that. But that's, again, like I said, it's just really hard. You got to really, you need to go buy a factory. And it's hard to get, we have like a contract baker making it for us to ship to like these places. But it's hard to get people to, we get a great recipe, but it's also hard to get people to do it right and give a shit about it. And it's hard.
Yeah, it is funny. I try to think about how many comedians like were destined to go into the family business, and the dad had to go like, "You're going to be a what?"
I know. Oh, my dad, classic. Yeah.
I'll give you $50 to stay home.
And that's an absolute true story. And my dad was one of the. By the way, and I know you probably heard this. A lot of comics I've heard this, including Jim Carrey, told me this. The funniest guy I knew my whole life was my dad. I mean, by far. I mean, my dad would, a lot of comics I've heard over the years say this. My dad would literally, wouldn't even know what a tagline was, but he'd have them like, "Oh yeah, that's good, do that," and he'd just keep going, and I'd be like crying. I mean, to this day, literally, my dad, funniest guy I knew, my whole life probably, as far as
I would say the same thing about my father. He was he had more charisma.
Oh God,
than anybody I've ever met. We talk about Lenny, like he was like a Lenny. He walked into a room.
My dad, same thing.
He walked into a bar in New York City, and he always knew 5 people come up to him, Fitz, and he'd make them laugh.
Same thing. My dad, same thing. And I had maybe, on a scale of 1 to 10, if my dad had 10 on that scale, I might be like 7 or 6, you know what I mean? But I never got where that, like that, you know what I mean? Right. He just people were attracted to him. It was weird. I used to go, what the fuck? What is it with this guy? Why do people give a shit about him? I don't know. It was weird,
I think that's why I've always been friends with people like that. I was, me and Meanie had a long history together, and he was the same kind of guy. Meanie could light up a room. Oh God, so much fun. I'm so, not to get on a tangent, but I was so saddened by Meanie, but I was so happy that I spent 6 months prior to when he died, I reconnected with him, and we worked together at the Borgata. And we had so much fun. I mean, Greg, as a comedian, as you know, one of the occupational hazards is we don't laugh like we used to. You know what I mean? I'm talking about cathartic, like laughing tears, like that endorphin rush, whatever it is you get from laughing, And I was watching him every night, and he was doing the duet with him and Sinatra singing the Brazilian coffee song. It just I'm telling you, I could cry laughing right now, and it's just so much fun. And just to laugh like that is so good. You forget how it's. And then every morning we'd meet for breakfast. And he'd go, "Hey, I'm down here. What do you know?" And then we'd have drinks afterwards, and he'd make me laugh. Just when I walk up to him, he'd make me laugh. I mean, I miss him so much. And but I was so grateful that I had that moment, because when he moved from LA back to New York, I used to see him at Christmas time. I think we were at his house one Christmas time. A party. Right. And, I'd golf with him once in a while. And then I lost touch with him kind of, only because, and then we reconnected, and it was great. I'm thankful for that, Yeah, that's a gift. That's a gift. Any time spent with Kevin was.
Yeah. Oh, God. So funny.
Yeah.
It's such a funny, and that's the thing too about being a comedian. My friends literally are the funniest people in the world. I mean, literally. I mean, all my friends, which is so surreal when you think of it,
Dude, I got to thank you, by the way. The other night when we did that St. Patrick's Day show, you just kind of offhandedly gave me a tagline to a joke. Yeah. And I went away this past weekend to Raleigh, North Carolina, and the bit was already a strong bit. It was getting big laughs. And then the tagline gives it a whole other level.
Good.
It was the one about when I'm talking about not cheating on my wife my whole life. Yeah. And then at the end of our life, we're in our 80s and we're on the rocking chairs. And she says, all those years I knew you were on the road. And, I just figured you must have tripped up sometimes. You're only human. You must have stepped out. But that never bothered me because you always treated me like a queen. And I'd be like, fuck! Why did you tell me? And I get this huge laugh. Yeah. And then you added this tagline. And then she looked at me and goes, I just assumed we were both fucking other people.
Oh, good.
Because the best part about
the comedian, I just thought that's where you were going, but that's why comedian.
Because it also takes it off being on me. That's
You're not so much of an asshole now.
Right. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I'm glad. I'm so happy.
You've given me so many taglines over the years. You're a joke machine. So
I appreciate it.
All right, so let's cut through. I want to talk a little bit about this TV show that you're on called Loudermilk, which, thank God, got picked up by Amazon Prime because it was
Loudermilk. Yeah.
What did I say?
I think you said louder mouth, which is maybe true. Loudermilk. Maybe you did say louder mouth. I don't know.
I didn't say louder mouth. Loudermilk, but I've seen it. I actually really like it. I've only seen about half of the first season, but I'm looking forward to binging the rest. But but it was on, what channel was it on originally?
Originally it was on DirecTV's audience channel, which was their original programming channel, Right. And then what happened, and if you had DirecTV, you could see it. If you try to find it, they didn't get behind it that much. They weren't like, hey, Loudermilk, DirecTV, But so, people that saw it really dug it. And then what happened was DirecTV, was, AT&T owns DirecTV, and then they own HBO, and they merged or whatever they did. So now HBO has HBO Max, and our channel went away. They dissolved it, and they turned it into a preview channel for HBO Max. You know what I mean? So now we were in limbo. We had 2 seasons, and we had already shot a 3rd season, which nobody had seen. And then for a while, it was on Amazon Prime in Canada, and in the United Kingdom, and all around. And people were seeing it in New Zealand here and there, but no one could see it in the States. And I'm like, what's going on? Even when it was on, So now finally, Amazon just bought it, and they dropped the first 2 seasons on Amazon Prime. And then about 2 weeks from now, they're going to drop season 3.
Right. Which is the one that, because I just had Brian Regan on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's talking about how, like, Peter Farrelly said that he thinks Brian's performance in season 3 is as good as any actor he's seen in a sitcom in his life.
Yeah, he does a remarkable job in this, and it's really kudos, because a lot of times comedians get, they always say, I don't know if they can do that, but of course they get proven wrong by Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, and on and on. But he kills it, and his arc it's a really great arc in season 3, and that's what's great about the show. Peter envisions doing 7-8 episode seasons, because there's so many characters, and then you can just do like. You can explore a little bit with each character. You know what I mean? There's some funny stuff that you go. But it's darkly funny. But it has a good, a lot of good messages, and it deals with a lot of real subjects like addiction, and stuff. Yeah,
what my favorite part about the show is that the star of the show, Ron Livingston, who if you don't, it's so funny for that guy's amount of credits. I mean, he has literally done 2 movies a year and a TV series every year for 20 years. But I don't think people know his name. Like Ron Livingston is just the guy who's been the lead in a bunch of stuff. Yeah. But he is fantastic in this. But the worst part is for you is that he looks like you if you had taken care of yourself.
Yes, thank you.
If you had worn sunblock and exercise.
And I was not 20 years older than him. But but you know what? The other thing is that Ron, it's funny, when he first was cast as Loudermilk, and I knew the script, I was close to it, so I knew what was going on, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I was trying to picture him as it, and not that I couldn't see him as it, but I didn't really know. And I'll tell you what, I can't imagine anyone playing Loudermilk now, and he is so good at what you wait to see. I'm telling you, I hope you do watch the rest of it and get into it a little bit, because I'm telling you, he is so good at it. His part, he really is. We got a great cast, and everyone's there's no egos. It's great. There's no, everyone's very, everyone's really giving, there's no.
Well, I think that trickles down because it's the Farrelly Brothers.
They started up top. Exactly. They set the stage.
You've been on, just to name the movies you've done with them, you were in Kingpin, Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, Shallow Hal, Stuck on You.
Yes.
You've been in like everything they've done. And
almost, except for the one he won a fucking Oscar for. Somehow I didn't get in that one.
Which one's that?
Fucking Green Book. I'm gonna fucking strangle somebody.
Well, you either had to be the stars or a fucking racist. So did you want to? Did you want to be somebody beating up the black guy?
No, but I'm joking. Meaning, like, I've been in all these movies, of course, when he wins an Oscar, and I'm the only one I'm not in. Right. But actually, another one I wasn't in, and Pete actually said it kills me not to have you in this, but he got some marching orders from the producers because he just got on this last minute, and they didn't want it to be a regular Farrelly thing where any of the usual cast of suspects. So I couldn't get in it. And of course, which one was it? Fever Pitch, Boston Red Sox. Oh, how am I not in that fucking movie? That one killed me. Yeah. And a matter of fact, a funny story, I saw a screening of it. I was with Pete and a couple of producers, and they had a big screening somewhere in LA. And Pete was telling me how it kind of hits you a little bit. It's got a little heart, Fever Pitch, whatever. It's a little emotional. And when I walked out of the theater, he goes, "So what'd you think?" I goes, "Great." He goes, "It gets you a little bit, didn't it? It gets you a little bit, doesn't it?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "Really good." I was thinking about like all the residuals I wasn't going to get, and really started weeping, tearing up a little bit. I was trying to kind of bust his balls a little bit,
So those guys, do they co-direct it?
Not really. Not this one. Pete created it with Bobby Mort, and then he writes a lot of the episodes, and then he obviously supervises all the episodes, and we do a little round table with all of them, and I do some punch up with the two, and then Pete will direct them, but sometimes he'll have Bobby direct some of them. Like he doesn't want to, he can't direct them all. I mean, it's a lot of work.
You got to switch off. And you got to do pre-production.
Yeah, so he tries to have Bobby do some of them, and Bobby helps out, a lot. Actually, that when they do movies together, they kind of co-direct because they, But sometimes Bobby is there when Pete's there. I'm pretty sure too. Like he might be helping out a little bit, but as a rule, they're just kind of just on their own as far as that goes.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if you can tell. You don't have your wife or your daughters around, do you?
They're in somewhere out there, but I think maybe, I don't know why.
I just want to talk about one of my favorite nights in comedy was you and I got booked up in, I mean, you talk about going to New Hampshire.
Oh, the snowstorm.
We used to go to Maine. We went up to Maine
in the snow.
In the snow, like not light snow, like a snowstorm where there was no cars left on 93 North. It was just us.
I had that Toyota, whatever the hell. I had that crazy. I think I had my.
I think it was a BMW because it was rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, it was. It was my. Yeah, it was the old BMW.
It was an ancient BMW with rear-wheel drive, and we're driving up, and we are fishtailing. We're still 2 hours away. The snow is still coming down, and we're already fishtailing. And we're like, we're gonna do it.
I think we did go into a snowbank at one point too. I had to navigate.
We did. Right? That's right. It was like the Suez Canal in New Hampshire.
Yeah, we were sideways. I do remember that.
And so we get up there, and I mean, here's the thing about this. People want to talk about the glamour of show business.
That had to be almost 30 years ago, Greg. That had to be close to 30 years ago.
Close to 30 years ago. Yeah, probably was. And we get up there, and I mean, with no snow, it's a 4.5 hour drive. With the snow, it probably took us 6.5. And we get there, and we're late as hell, and we park the car, and the payoff is it's a roadhouse. It's just a dive bar with a microphone in the corner, and we walk in, and we're on top of the world because number one, we made it, and number two, we get to do stand up. We're just coming up. We're still excited every time. So we do the show, and then there's a couple of waitresses that are just well oiled. They're well oiled, and they're very hospitable, should we say, to the comedians.
Yes.
And so you and I split off. I was still drinking at this point. This was right before I quit, I think.
Yeah.
And we split off, and you went off with one of them, and I went off to this other one. And she drives me to her place, and it is a trailer. And we get inside, and her mother's there because she's got a 3-year-old that's asleep in the other room in the trailer. And so her mother looks at her. She doesn't look at me twice. This is standard.
Sadly, this is a common refrain. It's okay.
It's Thursday. The mom knows it's comedy night. There's going to be company.
She's ready.
So the mother leaves, and then I won't even go into details what happens with us, but I did not make love with this woman. We fooled around a little bit, and then I was the one saying like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so just after the 4th tattoo reveals itself, then, people didn't have tattoos back then.
No. Matter of fact, Greg, it's funny you should say that because I don't, I have a joke that, jokes don't work as well anymore now. Certain things like, I had a joke about tattoos, like where I joke about, I say, my buddy of mine's got tattoos like all over he's got sleeves all over his face, his neck, and I kind of was busting his balls, and I go, hey, look, if you get a tattoo, fine. I don't have them. I'd get one. I could maybe have it if I wanted a shamrock or something. I might show it, but I mean, I don't have, on my face, neck. And I go, I think it says something about a person to be able to do that to yourself, to have the confidence to put it on your neck and face and hands and arms. I go, it speaks a certain amount of confidence. The confidence, for instance, to know you're never going to need a bank loan. You're never going to have to work for corporate America, fucking ever,
Yeah, right.
And of course, that joke on a scale 1 to 10 used to be a 10. Now it gets like a 6. Everyone's in the crowd, like all tatted up,
It's a commitment that you're never going to have a job that starts before 9 o'clock at night.
Yes. Yeah. So at any rate, but everything's changed,
But I remember that night, and then we met up the next morning. You swung by. I don't know. They knew the girls knew each other, so she called her, told her, and then we just laughed. I just remember we were both so hungover. We're driving back,
and that's when you laugh. You ever notice how the funniest laughs ever is when you're just weak and hungover, and you just anything will make you laugh, and you just cry because that's one of my favorite times ever. The type of rides like that where you just like laugh.
And then I remember like about 3 weeks later, I'm at the Faneuil Hall Comedy Connection, and another comedian who I won't name, but I'll tell you after the show.
I know who it is. Yeah.
He comes back, and he's like, I go, what's going on? He goes, oh, I just did this gig up in Maine, man. It was great. I go, oh, really? I go, how was it? He goes, well, I met this waitress. I went back to her place. We had sex all night, sex in the morning. And I go, trailer? And he's like, yeah. I go, 3-year-old mother there? He's like, yeah. I go, you did not have sex with her.
Oh, hysterical.
There's even more to the story, but I won't.
You'll digress.
Yeah, it gets darker and darker and darker.
The 3-year-old daughter and the mother thing reminds me of, you ever heard that old joke about the comedian on the cruise ship? He's on a cruise ship, and this woman sees him, and she's like an older cougar, so a 65-year-old cougar, really well put together though. Yeah. And she goes, I love your show. Want to come back to my cabin? And he's like, yeah. So he's walking with the cougar, and she's like, you ever been with 2 women? And the comedian's like, of course, sure. And she goes, great. So she gets to the door, and she's about to open her cabin door. She goes, you ever been with a mom and her daughter? And the comic goes, no. She goes, would you like to? He goes, yeah. So she gets in the cabin. She knocks on the bathroom door. She goes, come on out, Mommy's into it.
She's the bait. She sends her daughter out.
90-year-old mother in the bathroom.
Yeah. See what you wait in the bathroom, Mom. I'll go see what I can shake up on the Lido deck.
No, it's not the 19-year-old daughter.
The best is you're also the guy that I count on every time I see you. You've got a new street joke that's like, 10 out of 10 street jokes. You're famous for them. And so we do these golf tournaments sometimes for a guy named Steve DeMarco, who's just a prince. Greatest guy. I just talked to Steve 2 days ago. He called me. Oh, you doing a tournament? Coming up, I think in June or something. He's got something going on. You'll probably be there. Line. Yeah. We do these tournaments, and it's such a pleasure because, LA's got these courses where it costs maybe, some of them cost $200,000 just to join. Sure. Like, here's $200,000. I don't get it back. And then it's another $50,000 a year. And the courses are empty because the only people that can afford them are like these ancient dudes. And they're still, so anyway, we get to actually play these courses because they have these celebrity golf tournaments where, the big rollers will pay 10 grand for the day to play for their company. It's a donation. And then they want to put one comedian in each foursome just to liven it up and have some fun. And then after the golf round, they have these lunches. And after the lunch or the dinner, depending on when it starts, we get up, and each of the comedians, and there might be 15 of us, we each get up and tell one great street joke. And it is, they used to do stand-up shows where like 2 or 3 guys would get up and do an act, but now they're like, no, people seem to like this one joke format better. Yeah. Have you ever won? You've won some of those, I'm sure. I have. And, but you always hear a good joke that you hadn't heard, which is great. You know what I mean? Because it's the comic's best favorite joke. And usually the best joke is one that the comic knows not many people have heard either. It's like a real, one that he hasn't heard. And if he hasn't heard it, most of us haven't heard it probably. That's what's so good about it. Yeah, Ray Romano did mine. I was going up after Ray, and he went up and did my. He didn't know I was going to do it, but it was I was a little too familiar of a joke. Yeah. And then my other favorite thing that you do is I was at the Improv one night at the urinal taking a piss, and then you walk up to the urinal next to me and start taking a piss, and you start knocking on the partition between us, and you go, "Don't you hate these things?"
I actually do that in my act. I do this whole bathroom joke. I do this whole thing about a bathroom, whatever. You got to see it, but anyway, I have it in there. It's hard to paint the picture of that too. I try to do it the best I can, but it's hard to mimic that experience.
So I like to play a game with my. Well, first, I like to ask all my guests the same question because everybody's got a different answer, obviously. Which is, what did you learn about yourself in the last year?
What have I learned about myself in the last year? Oh, because of COVID, you mean?
Yeah.
I've learned that I'm susceptible to anxiety, I think, which I never had before.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I got like a little bit of like I get tightness like a little bit because I realize like, what the hell's going on? But I'm going through a lot of stuff too. I'm waiting on, I was waiting for Loudermilk to get picked up finally. I got some other thing in the works. And then I got this refi I was doing. It's just taking, you know what I mean? And it's just, everything is just, I haven't worked in a year and it's, the bills keep coming in.
Right.
It's a little daunting. I got 2 kids at USC.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
The most expensive school in the country, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I am in like, I was under a lot of stress. It's similar to like 2008 when the crash happened, and everything happened, and all of a sudden, I had all these corporate gigs and they went away because it wasn't cool didn't look good optics wise for a company, to hire a comedian when they were laying people off.
Yeah,
even if they had the money, it was just like, so I had all these gigs just canceled. I had gigs for Intel and big monster corporations, and they're like, really? And you're canceling my show? And it was like, that was, the similar idea, but this was just, this year has been really, really trying, Well,
also you're a very active guy, and having to sit still and be confined has got to be hard for you. Yeah,
exactly. And be alone with my thoughts, God forbid,
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's not a lot of them. That's my problem is I have 8 of them, but the 8 thoughts they just go in a circle.
And it's a loop. And you know what it is too, is most of us have ADD, comedians, we all like kind of, have a degrees of it, I guess, you know what I mean? And so that's like, God forbid, like I'm the type of person, you strike me as similar too, like where I need to be, among people, and I like to always be doing something. God forbid I do, I'm not good being alone. I don't like being alone with myself. I don't need my own. When I'm at the hotel or the comedy club, that's enough the downtime for me. I need to be out and, be among people. I'm always like looking for, my wife says, you're always like, you're like a fun seeker. I always have to be, I can't, God forbid I have any, like I'm a more the merrier guy. Like when we have parties, like I want people to sleep over, it'll be fun. I'm not like a loner type person at all.
Right. Have you had a 3-way?
Can I take the 5th?
You've had 5? You'd have a 5-way?
There you go. Man,
you can take
something went wrong in the translation there.
Here's the other thing we play before we go on the show every week is it's called Rank 'em. I'm going to give you 3 things and you rank them.
Okay.
First one is never golf again, never get another blowjob, never do stand-up again.
Ooh. So like what would be the worst thing that,
Yeah, which one would you sacrifice first? Which would you sacrifice second?
Okay. Oh man. Is it always those 3 choices?
No, I made these up for you.
Oh, you fucker. Okay. All right. I have a penchant for all of those. Shit, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I guess I could probably say golf. I could give up that.
You give up golf before blowjobs.
Well, what? I'd probably go blowjobs, golf, then stand up.
All right.
Because I haven't been golfing that much because of COVID, and it's been it's a little onerous even financially. Like I suspended my membership because it was like I can't in clear conscience be sitting there spending $1,000 a month golfing, or I'm waiting for my next gig.
Right.
So it's not really prudent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
All right. Here's the next one.
Yeah.
Robinson, Chan, Kennedy?
Robinson Chan Kennedy?
Those are three choices. Number 1 is Robinson. Number 2 is Chan. Number 3 is Kennedy. If you haven't figured out the category, these are all Jackies.
Oh, okay. Who's my favorite?
Yeah.
I'm a big Jack Kennedy guy, but I do like Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan, whatever.
So you go Kennedy first, Robinson second?
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. Jackie. It's 2021. You may want to put Jackie Robinson first. Looks
I like it. I almost wore it today. I got a number 42. I got a Robinson T-shirt.
Oh, really?
I like him. But Jack Kennedy, I'm a Boston kid. Jack Kennedy was my guy. I mean, the only other guy. How about this? It would be a tough one for me with Obama because I think Obama might have even eclipsed Kennedy, in my opinion, as far as orator, to be as good of an orator. I mean, Jack Kennedy his speeches are so impassioned, but Obama, he might have eclipsed him, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had to go back now and look at them all, but,
Well, if you look at Obama's what do you call it when he talks to the press? They do the roast.
The correspondence dinner.
His correspondence dinners, that's stand-up. That's a guy who does great stand-up. Yeah.
He has timing. He also, both those guys gave a fuck. They get compassion. They got a soul. And I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you look at Jack Kennedy, he came from a rich family, but it was an embarrassment of riches for him. He didn't like the whole family was based on service and, giving back and all that. And, you can tell by his speeches, it just wasn't just lip service. He gave a fuck, literally, if you go back and listen to those speeches, so impassioned,
Yeah, because he lived.
And like at Obama. I mean, you see when he was just recently, he was recounting, not recently, but recounting the Sandy Hook shooting, and he was crying, literally. I mean, every time I think of that, this was years removed from it, I mean, the guy's got so much. I love that guy, I love, both of them.
Yeah. Last one, and I want you to give a reason why for each one.
Okay.
Buried alive, eaten by sharks, eaten by birds.
Ooh, which is Jesus Christ. You got too much time on your fucking hands. Which one would I? Okay, the worst one being the worst one for me first. You saying whatever the worst one? Okay. Probably buried alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the claustrophobic part of that alone is just terrifying to me. That's terrifying.
And also, you're in the hole. You're probably handcuffed, and they're throwing dirt. Each shovel of dirt is bringing you that much.
Even worse, I have it in my mind. I have it in a coffin, and you can hear the dirt hitting the coffin, and you're like, I'm alive, which some people actually has happened in history.
Oh, it has.
They didn't know, But yeah, so that would be my first horrific thing. And shark would probably be the next worst thing for me would probably be eaten by birds, because that would be so slow and horrible. And then the shark would be a little faster, so it would be over quicker, So I guess that would be it. But I got to tell you, we got a minute?
Yeah.
The birds thing. Comedian Gary Muledare?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Gary's been around for 100 years. Gary's like, legendary. So Gary, when he was a kid, his dad, he owned a movie theater, his dad. And when Gary was 18, his dad gave him the movie theater and said, look, this is going to be your thing. You're going to run this movie theater. And, it's going to give you a chance to become a real viable member of society, and blah, blah, blah. So Gary, being Gary Muledare at 18 years old, he takes it on himself to have the theater. And this is 1969, whenever it was. And the movie Birds was playing, with Alfred Hitchcock, the penultimate scene when the birds are going nuts. He releases 12 pigeons in the fucking movie theater, and they're fucking hitting people in the head. It's the most genius thing I've ever heard of it for a fucking prank. Can you imagine? His dad fucking went nuts. He took away the theater from him and goes, you fucking little asshole. But he told me that story personally. So I always thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Once again, another comedian crushing the family business.
Yeah. I run this fucking fried dough business right into the fucking ground. Trust me.
That's right. All right, Jackie Flynn, check him out on Loudermilk. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Brian Regan's in it. Ron Livingston.
Yeah, also Jay Flynn Comedy on Instagram and Twitter, and Jackie Flynn fan page, Facebook, blah, blah, blah.
There's a very funny TikTok, I'm sure it's on your Instagram as well, is when your daughter eats half your sandwich.
Yes.
I saw it online, and I think that went viral, didn't it?
It did. These kids have gotten more followers from my hijinks. Like they take me, they go, Dad, do this, and I do some dance, and they don't even like give me any credit for it, And I got fucking 7 followers on fucking TikTok. They got thousands.
Wait, but you lost your shit. You didn't lose your shit, but you were so fucking angry.
I was aggravated because I was rushing. What they don't see is the backstory. I painstakingly made the sandwich. I'm taking it to go. I'm golfing. Yeah. I'm taking it to get ready, and I have a little ice pack, and I'm gonna go because I'm gonna eat it later, and I'm making whatever. And then all of a sudden they take half my sandwich. You'll see.
It's great. It's great.
I was so fucking mad.
All right, Jackie. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Hey, it was great seeing you, especially getting to work together again, man. And stay healthy. Love you. Miss you. And be good. Hope to see you soon. Christmas Eve, man. Got to do it.
Yeah, if we're in town, we'll be there Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Thanks. Take care. I love you.
Bye-bye.